Hey, um, hello? Can you hear me? Hey everybody. This is the, what am I calling it? Third voiced first passage after party stream thing. Um, I don't have terribly much specifically prepared, but I want to talk through, to some extent, my experience working on this thing. And I have some video and music and stuff to play, and uh, the main thing is things are most productive when there's some back and forth. So any questions, comments, feedback you guys can provide would be very helpful throughout. But let me start with sort of overview of where I'm at with this thing. I had ambitions a couple months ago of making like another big sort of produced video talking about, my process and what it's been like working on this thing for the first year and change. Um, I made that big launch video that we just watched the first part of a minute ago in late 2022. And that sort of laid out my ambitions in a sort of way, and like these big sort of nebulous flexes about how wild and ambitious this thing is going to be, and how I was going to try to just brute force a somewhat obsolete mode of comic self-publishing into the world. And I've been doing some of that, but I figured I would just sort of get some of my thoughts out here in a more extemporaneous fashion. Okay? Um, this has been an enormous amount of work, uh, but kind of less work than what I've been used to doubling up on projects for the past several years. And it's been kind of a relief. Like, I have gotten a real sense of what I can get done in a week. It's been fun to structure it around, a scene a week, a sort of manageable amount of work each week. It's been fun to allow myself to get into a rhythm really intensively in a way that I really haven't before. I've done an enormous amount of comics over the years, but I have, um, it is only because I started this comic in the circumstances that I did that I was able to like really figure out a new rhythm for it. A huge amount of my thinking about this thing just sort of comes down to the moment of having a clean break, right? I think I talked about a lot of this um, in the intro video and elsewhere, but I was aware that Vatu was going to end in late 2022, and it had been a very, very long time since I had had any moment where I wasn't working on at least one, often two big concurrent projects. And that was like scary, but it it allowed me to wrap my head around doing something kind of bigger and newer and weirder than I could have imagined doing a couple years earlier, And so a lot of my initial thinking and a lot of what the substance of that pitch video from 2022 is just like trying to make the case for that and make a big deal of that. And now I've done a year of the work and I have a 400 page fucking graphic novel that you can read for free. You don't have to, pay anything for it or tell me that you liked it or advertise for me or anything. Just please, try to read it maybe. But that book now is like, that's what I'm going for, right? You have some sense of the scale of what I'm operating with. I really, this thing is going to keep going and be really huge and be kind of like, it will be bigger than you think, I think. I am who knows the shape that it'll take and how it'll continue to fit into my life, but fucking God willing, this is really something. I really feel engaged in this fucking comic. So much of what I have to say is just that I'm like really enjoying working on this thing. I feel pretty emotional about it. Ugh. Give me a moment. I should have some background music. Whoops. I've been teaching, parenthetically, I've been teaching at SVA in Manhattan for the past semester and a half, which is not something that I ever thought I would do. And in some ways, it's sort of goes against a lot of my tendencies of thought, and it's a little tricky, but it does really help me organize my thoughts around this stuff and get some sense of where I'm at historically. And the big thing I'm coming away from as I try to as I try to sort of lay out some history of comics publishing, comics self-publishing on the internet for these students, is that like this is a really kind of miraculous moment for the medium. These past, I'm sorry, I'm a little too distracted to keep up with the chat, but I'm going to get back to it. These past couple decades, I mean, I don't really know exactly how long, but the span of my career doing this stuff from like the late aughts on, this is it's a pretty cool time, I mean, before the internet, you used to have to invest thousands of dollars to serialize your self-published comic. It used to be practically inconceivable to do some long, sustained story in this medium because you'd have to fit it into the industrial peculiarities of the moment, right? Or you just have to like brute force it by spending a lot of money self-publishing it or whatever. Do the Cerebus thing, which like, 2 or 3 people in those decades were able to do in any sort of scale and consistency. But now, I mean, look at all the wild, enormous shit being made. It's really an incredible new space that has been opened up, it's made possible to imagine in comics. That's pretty cool, I think. And as I approached that like clean break moment of being done with Vaatu, I was really trying to wrap my head around what that is and like how to take advantage of that, and like thinking about how everything that I have learned about storytelling and making comics is built into this moment of the medium, right? I'm not learning really generalizable storytelling skills. I'm learning how to just double down on my own fucking thing and make it with little regard for the industry and just sort of putting it out there, and people will connect with it. Some small number of people will connect with it, but I don't need that many to have a sustainable career, basically. So I'm just trying to double down on that, basically. Let's call that the end of a paragraph. There were a couple of questions that I saw. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for reading the thing. It's a ridiculous speed for how complex it is. I mean, it's around a page a day, which is which doesn't feel crazy. I don't know. I work pretty quickly though, and I have a lot of sort of, I don't know, shortcuts and sort of ways of summarizing detail and stuff. Each book / passage is going to be a different view on the whole world, right? No. It is one big sustained story, but maybe in a way, yes. I don't. The second book the second book is quite different, and the third book probably is quite different, but it is contiguous. It is contiguous. Better work life balance than Dave Sim. I hard to say. I mean, I like. So it is my this. I regret that I do kind of have a lot of affection for some things about Cerebus. I have read a lot of it. I I sort of tap out when it gets too into the metaphysical sexism stuff. But it is very interesting seeing how he deals with being like a public figure and like the ambition of his project, because he really, I don't know, he just transparently loves the attention in a way that really makes me cringe. And like he has such enormous blind spots in his work and his attitude to his work that it's just interesting to see. I guess that's not really a complete thought. Um, how are you finding your students? Um, Very different this semester than last semester. Mostly they're quite engaged and interested, and they have a lot of different angles on the medium. Um, they're all 21, 22 years old, and they're almost all of them working exclusively on a tablet, on their own tablet, which is unthinkable to me. And the thing that I'm running into a lot, this is not a particular criticism of them, this is just sort of systemic, is that there's a lot of stuff about image processing that I just learned through osmosis because I always worked on a desktop computer, and also because my parents were freelance graphic designers. But like, there's just a lot of basic image processing and like file management shit that they're not learning because they're in like a tablet, mobile interface environment. And I don't know what to do about that. I'm trying to be an advocate in some direction about that, but it's a weird thing because I'm trying to, in a lot of this stuff, I'm trying to be like not too reactionary against how technology changes this stuff, but it does change this stuff. But some of them are really onto some cool shit. We are in a time period where mainstream online platforms are becoming more difficult places to be as artists, but like I think it's driving people to free themselves from needing to be attached to those and towards creating our own personal spaces again. To some extent that must be true, right? I mean that must be true. I mean, I see that that is true in some small ways. I don't know like what the scale of that is, But like look at how painful and inhuman so much of the internet has gotten. There must be some reaction to that, right? I there's a wait, no, I lost my thought. There's some sort of optimism to be found in this moment, I think, cuz like a lot of these a lot of these platforms are kind of running up against the wall, like Facebook and Instagram are so, I mean, maybe just to me, they seem so broken and inhospitable and corrupted. And Twitter obviously is being just driven into the ground. And that's just, one weird guy fucking that up, but it's symptomatic, right? So I feel like there's a way of looking at this that's like these things are breaking and collapsing. There are people who are interested in art that's made in an uncompromising way by individuals. Maybe there's some potential energy there. It is great to hear you so positive about online comics when it feels pretty dire for creative work online. Curious if that comes from looking at things historically or whether your students are optimistic about things. So, I don't know that my students are very optimistic. I don't know that I am, in the big picture, optimistic either. I mean, like, just the thing that I'm trying to. A lot of people, especially people somewhat younger than me, start putting comics online, and all that they understand, this is no fault of theirs, but like the world that they come into is a world where there's a bunch of platforms that have, intense mediation, like, algorithmic shit that they have to deal with. And you see all the time how people doing comics try to build their comics in such a way that it works with the Instagram algorithm or whatever, which is like, that's a reasonable move, I guess. But all that shit can be taken out from under you. So like, there's optimism in looking at this in terms of you're doing work that is bigger and more important than these platforms. And maybe you can make the compromise of trying to exploit their algorithmic systems on the way, but just know that whatever you're doing is going to outlast fucking Instagram. All this shit is going to look very different in 5 years, and you'll still be doing your thing. I think that's how I wrap my head around the optimism of that moment. Okay. What is the experience cross posting on Webtoons like? It's kind of cool. I put Vatu there for the last like year of serialization of that comic. I cross posted it there, and like, it was a lot of audience of a sort, like of an age range and a type of comics literacy that I have not really connected with before. And I just sort of like put it there and didn't do very much promotion. And that was pretty cool to connect with it. And it's interesting to see what it looks like to them and what comics in general look like to them. People who primarily consume the medium through that platform. I still kind of have that experience. It's fun to be there and connect with a sort of audience that I'm not that I'm not totally in the same cultural space as, I guess. But I would never enter into any sort of contract with them. It's where people are. It makes sense to put the thing there. That's all I need from Webtoon, basically. It's nice that they, according to some internal schedule and logic that I don't understand, it's nice that they send me occasionally $100 of like ad share revenue or whatever. Okay. Thank you, Eric Laser. I really appreciate that. Yes, T-Wit. Art made in an uncompromising way by individuals is one of the only things giving me hope in the world. Definitely yes, I feel that. I mean, it feels bleak. It feels like, it does sometimes feel bleak. I don't know. It's interesting to. I'm just reading your comments now. It's difficult, a little bit difficult for me to juggle all this stuff, but thank you for bearing with me. It's interesting to me that your parents were graphic designers, that it carried over to your interest in technical, mechanical aspects of your work. My mom is one too, and I feel very similarly. So it's fun to learn that an artist I feel very inspired by is the same. That's See You in the Country who says that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have comics are like a kind of industrial type of art, right? And a lot of making comics or commercial illustration generally is you're drawing, you're doing like art, capital A art, but you're also doing a lot of the pre-press work and the design work and the production work in the illustration itself. So it's nice to have that perspective, you know? Um, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I learned just osmotically from my parents being in that world. Webtoon, Glitch Bunny says, Webtoon is how I, 29, found Vatu. I follow just as many individually hosted webcomics as Webtoon, but it's really a great platform for discovery. I am curious about that. It must be because there's so much there. I don't keep up with it enough to really know, but it seems like a lot of people are publishing stuff that's designed for that platform and takes as aesthetic reference other things on that platform. And then there's stuff made by people who are like, I don't know. I'm like in a tradition that's sort of separate from that. And this is another area where I'm trying not to be too snobby because it's like it's an international, you know, global industrial medium. So we have always been learning from all of our different ways of doing it. Ooh. I don't really, this isn't really like an assessment, right? I mean, I'm talking optimistically. I feel optimistically, but that's because I'm talking about comics and I'm making a comic that I feel very engaged with. I don't know that I feel optimistic about its place in the industry or like its place as a sustaining thing in my career or whatever, but I love doing it, so that informs my my emotional valence for all this stuff. Um, so I'm just sort of bouncing ideas around, and who I don't think I arrive at conclusions that anyone should take seriously. I have on the walls here a bunch of I'm plugged into various things here, but maybe I can walk around and show you some. I've been doing from the start. I've been doing a bunch of like big newsprint character development stuff. Um, I like just surrounding myself in it. And here's the last page. You know what I was gonna do? I'm gonna get back to your comments in a minute. What I was gonna do that I just forgot is put up this little thing. Here's what I'm gonna do. You're gonna love this. Oh, come on. What is that? Video. It is not a very professional operation here. Okay, that's big enough, right? Look at me. Wait, I can squish myself. I took video with a little overhead camera of inking a bit of the last scene. This is all in real time. Um, I use in this. I am going to use a brush. You not really be able to see this. It's a Winsor Newton Series 7 brush. I got one of those in 2022, before I started the comic, $35. It still works. It's kind of splitting. I should probably get a new one, but like one brush a year, that's great. And then for a bunch of the detail stuff, I use a little G-Nib pen, which is the nib that Akira Toriyama uses. How y'all doing? Is this interesting at all? Am I am I doing okay? Proprietus. I'm using your screen names and not the names that your Christian names that I know you possess, just for clarity. But good to see you. I remember there was a time with Vaatu where as you got later in the comic, there were some conventions you were frustrated you were still beholden to. Do you feel like Third Voice you're staying flexible? Does it feel like it's getting easier to make each page? Too early to say, maybe. I have tried to in my story planning and in my formal constraints. Oh my god, OBS has a fucking sorry to interrupt. OBS has a scroll through the video feature now. It didn't used to have that. That's awesome. Oh my god, that totally changes my life. Oh my god. I gotta do that cartoon show again. Holy shit. Pardon me. Yes, so with a lot of things with Third Voice, I have the benefit of this experience of doing 12 years of one comic that's fairly, voice-wise consistent, Vaatu, and like have the experience of working through it as a thing that I planned and also as a thing that I'm like sort of feeling out as I move through it. And that's wild. I could not exactly explain that. No, you couldn't really be taught that, I just have that particular weird experience. Not because I'm like special, but just because like that's what I did for 12 years. So I have some sense or some like faith in myself that that I know what sorts of planning are too brittle and what sorts of planning allow me room to move. So I don't know. That's the vibe I have in my head when thinking about a lot of the constraints that I'm setting up for myself with Third Voice. It will be, this is all just in my head. It will feel probably pretty sort of literalistic and consistent, just because that's my aesthetic narratively. But I certainly am trying to be less uptight in a lot of ways. Also, like, it's wild to me that I never really got into trying to be funny in comics all this time, I love working in a register that allows me to do stupid slapstick stuff and have like, I don't know, have like real obnoxious dumbass characters. I love that. I'm having fun with that. You've talked a good amount, Horse on VHS. Hello, I recognize you. You've talked a good amount about how with Third Voice you wanted to think more deeply about the serialized reading experience versus the archival one. Now that we're at the end of the first part, how are you feeling about the change in approach? Yes. I was thinking about that. Because it occurred to me, doing Vaatu for so long and doing the other comics before that for so long, like, it occurred to me that I had just, I was inhibited from thinking really about what the reading experience was like. And I had just been locked into this particular image of this is how I want to make the thing. So I kind of grew up in comics thinking of the graphic novel as the ultimate incarnation of the form. I'm sure that I have said this exact thing somewhere before, but like the idea that comics where you can see the seams and where you can see the improvisation and where you can see the original serialized publication mode, that's somehow tacky or not fully formed or whatever. And the ideal, I thought implicitly, was a graphic novel where it's all one thing and there's no concession whatsoever to the industrial needs of storytelling or serialization or whatever. Um, that feels ridiculous to me now. I kind of see how I got there and why I stuck to that because of the sort of storytelling that I like. But it feels ridiculous to me now because, like, you're always compromising. You're always working within some physical or industrial framework. Um, and I mean, you can't read like. I honestly think it was probably Berserk that did this for me. I read like I haven't read all of it, but I read a whole chunk of that comic several years ago, 4 or so years ago, and it's so you can see the rhythm of it is so improvised and like uh you know a beat every chapter. It's so beholden to its original publication form, but that allows it to occupy this enormous, weird, inventive space. And it would just not be as good if it was a graphic novel. It would just not be as good. So it's that sort of thing that got me thinking more about that. And the first book of Third Voice it's pretty much it was pretty well planned out as like a book, a graphic novel, but there's some improv in it too, and the I think the rhythm of it is a little bit beholden to the I'm trying to get one scene a week done thing, but hard to say. The main thing is I'm just trying to like keep it in mind reader experience and just make the most of the time in which it is a thing being actively serialized. Okay. Stickbug Evan, what does that mean? I'm doing great, thank you. Um, what size of brush is that? It's a number 2 round. Rice Boy had some comedy. Did it? I guess so. God, I was 18 years old when I started that comic. It took me like 2 years. Yeah, no, there was funny stuff in it. It is wild to think about. I don't feel very connected to that comic anymore, but it is, you know, the reason I have a career, and it's where I worked out a lot of the aesthetic principles that I guess I'm just going to be doing forever. you know. Will the Order of Tales book ever be back in stock? I don't know what I'm doing with that. It sold very slowly. I don't feel very attached to it. I It's also very physically large, which makes it kind of difficult to like reprint and keep in stock with Topatico, my distributor. But I would like to. I don't feel good enough about it to like pitch to a publisher, honestly. With Order of Tales, I mean. But maybe I'll reprint it. That would not be that expensive. It's just a big black and white book. I feel like you like the word industrial. Yeah, well, I keep coming back to this thing whenever I try to talk about my work in any context. I'm like moving between talking about the work as like, you know, the execution of my vision and like what I want to make. Moving between that and talking about the conditions, right? I have a job doing this stuff. I have to make it according. I have to make it with the assumption that I can fit it into my career or something. And comics are an industry, and even down to the drawing, it is industrialized. Like the reason that I'm drawing with black ink on white paper with a brush is because historically you could photograph that and reproduce it with reasonable reliability. Every little detail of it, at least historically, is built around being reproducible. I just think that's kind of cool. I mean, maybe it's sad. Maybe it's a miserable compromise. But like, what is the pure art that you're imagining being compromised there? I mean, I don't know. How do you think the reader experience is different for people reading it serialized as opposed to binging when a webcomic is done, says Mark Confidant. I think it's quite different. Uh, I love the experience of being involved with something as it's being made and having a sense of a like community around it and having a sense of the core questions and mysteries and whatever being like open questions. I like that. I want to support that type of space around this comic. Space around this comic. Put a pin in that. I'm going to return to that. But most of the stuff that I read or watch or whatever is done. I don't know. I I I I don't think that there's an ideal thing. I mean, I'm making it with both kind of in mind. I'm I am tremendously enjoying and I am grateful for the space that the sort of social space that has been existing around Third Voice on the Discord and everything since I started it. And that's not a thing that would exist if it was just done and published, I do those books with First Second. I've done like several graphic novels for publishers, right? Good and bad things about that experience. I'm happy and I'm unhappy with those books in various ways, whatever. But the biggest, loudest thing about in my memory of those experiences is that like if you make a book for a publisher, then like they have all this promotional architecture that they can bring to bear on the moment that the book is out, but that's fucking it. The book comes out, there's some articles or whatever, and then the book's in bookstores for a little while, and then people stop buying the book and it goes out of print. Basically, I don't have access to all the promotional infrastructure that a publisher has, or really any of it. I have access to less and less of it, but I'm making this thing and I'm updating it every single fucking week and I'm putting it everywhere and people are seeing it, maybe not a huge number of people, but like it's going, it's happening. It's a space that is active in pop culture in some small way. That feels like the divide to me. Oh my god. Okay. Coors Banquet. This is a Coors Banquet. Thank you, Ghost Moore. Maybe I will reprint that book. I have a lot of things I'm trying to. I feel a little overwhelmed. Oh, Tomb King Tristan says, I love the small points of funny, specifically the bar that's on the back of the prisoner's clothes. For some reason, that cracked me up, while at the same time, it made me go, but why is it there? That's about the merchant woman from the latter chunk of the book. She has this like broken horizontal bar, right? But yeah, I guess it didn't occur to me to like clarify this textually in any way, but that's like supposed to be. It's like she would hang things from the bar is longer, right? And she would hang things from them as she walks around selling stuff. Maybe that will be clarified for us at some point. What's the exploration process for? Oh man, I have so much visual development stuff I could show y'all if we get to it. I think the idea. Years ago, I read a comic of yours on riceboy.com, which I think was called Constant. Is that still around anywhere? Would you consider selling it maybe digitally? Was that the black and white comic about the guy in the diner and the monster? Snarkish Shark? Get back to me on that. Because that was called Next Week. I think the main character was called Constant. I don't know if I have that in like print quality anymore anywhere. That's from like 2008 or 9 probably. But I probably have the web resolution pages. I suppose I could put those up somewhere. I still can't believe there's no like indie comics journalism besides Fleen, says Proprietus. Yeah, well, Fleen, Gary, don't update that no more. There's really fucking none, right? What do, I mean, what? What are we doing here? I, there used to be several. I, 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 I try to keep track of this, and I, when Vatu ended, was about to end, I sent out a whole ton of press releases to all the pop culture blogs I could find, and just it didn't. There's nothing fucking there. You know, there's comics journalism, but it's all talking about uh Marvel movies and stuff, and like just the most popular, loudest shit. There used to be more stuff. There's a lot of people making really beautiful, weird stuff in this medium. Why is no one fucking talking about it? This hits me every year lately since the big collapse of that sort of more independent pop culture journalism happened several years ago. I'm struck by this when I go to a show like SPX, the Small Press Expo in DC. Y'all know about that? It fucking rocks. Um, it's like the biggest independent comics event on the continent, probably. It is super crowded. Everybody is so enthusiastic. There is just a wild array of just the most beautiful and strange shit that you don't see represented anywhere. It's incredible. I love it. It's like my favorite fucking thing. And it has just has no footprint on the internet really at all. You know, like you would not know it existed unless you went, and you would not at all know the scale of it. And it gets write-ups on, like, you know, the Comics Journal and stuff, but it just feels like it doesn't really even exist. I don't know. I mean, I'm more of a creature of the internet than maybe the target audience of that sort of show. But it doesn't feel like a workable system to me. Horse on VHS, love a Coors Banquet, God bless you. I love that you, traveling soul. I love that you seem to be so uncompromising with the way you make your comics and doing what you want to do. It feels like you do it for you foremost. I appreciate that, but uh, I appreciate that, um, but I do not know how else to do it. I I was lucky, I think, in getting some sort of a foothold with Rice Boy, which was, I had done little comics here and there before in like high school, but I Rice Boy felt like, as I was making it, like kind of it didn't feel like I was putting on a voice or trying to make something that I thought would seem cool. It felt like I was actually articulating something that was maybe not perfect, but was like my weird thing, you know, that I came up with, and that wasn't I wasn't doing a voice or whatever. And like, I don't know what the fuck else to do than that. I've tried to compromise more. I do compromise in all sorts of ways, I've been trying to say, but like, I don't know what I can't, first of all, I can't commit all of the labor that this stuff takes if I'm not totally emotionally invested. If it's not a thing that I'm obsessing about all the fucking time. So, you know, something that's it's going to be something that I feel strongly about. But but I don't do it just for me. I mean, I'm hugely motivated by having an audience and hearing what people think of it. Next week, I don't think was in an anthology. I think I made it for no particular reason. I did like a little self-published floppy book of it. It was like 20 some pages. So basically, for those of you who have not seen it, this is a comic I made when I was 20 or whatever. That's like I don't know, just a very weird, bleak, dark little story about this guy who's in a diner and he's meeting with this monster, but it turns out it's all like an illusion, and he's like in some sort of psychic prison. Um, and I was trying to do like some weird hallucinogenic thing with the monster design. That was kind of fun. The total lack of proprietus, the total lack of comic journalism, despite like SPX and TCAF, etc., existing and such. I'm just like, question mark. Is it just that journalism is mostly dead these days? Is it too small of an audience? Probably both of those things, at least. Yeah, what the fuck? I mean, I agree. I don't know. What do you do with that? I love the medium, and there is a lot of like money in it. I mean, like there's these big American publishers, like book publishers, putting I guess maybe that bubble is kind of burst, but they're putting a lot of money into like graphic novels that are kind of tapping into the indie comics, have been tapping into the indie comics world. So like it is I say again industrialized or whatever. But yeah, I guess like it's not at the scale of the number of people who are excited about who's going to be Jimmy Olsen in the new Superman movie or whatever. I've been wanting to do like a podcast, like a let's talk about comics podcast. I don't keep up and up with the medium, but just not really many other people are talking about this stuff, it feels like. I remember, ain't nothing. Hey man, I remember watching you ink pages of Rice Boy on some old streaming site like 15 years ago. Really cool to still see you working with ink and watching your art evolve. Third Voice rules. Thank you so much. That's wild. I can't believe that it has been possible to do live streaming inks for so long. I don't live stream inking really ever anymore, but I used to do that long, long ago. Um, God, I've been doing this shit for so long. Fnord Freestar. Your son has the same grip as me? Oh my god. I forget that it's weird. People see it and say that it's weird, but mostly I'm drawing with nobody looking at me. It gets the job done. You gotta work around, covering you know, you gotta work around obscuring the wrong part of the thing or whatever. Or smearing. Okay. Echo 777. Will we ever see what else Spongil can do with his trunk? Uh, I'm not going to get sexual with the comic, I'm sorry to say. He's got the cigarette trick where he can grab the cigarette and put it in his mouth. But I don't imagine he has a lot of fine control of it. Look, I got a cat here. You see that? Okay, oh baby. Well, a lot of reaction for the cat. His name is Milky. Okay, I'm going to play another little passage of music. I'm going to play the three songs that my brother Lewis made recently pertaining to this first book of Third Voice, which just ended. I made a little cute video collage thing to go along with it. Um, Lewis, he's on Bandcamp, Lewisdahm. You can download these three songs if you like. I'm very happy with them. It's very fun to work with him on all this stuff because I have no understanding or imaginative capacity in in the realm of music, and and he's quite good at it. So I'm gonna play these three songs, and then we'll get back and talk a little bit more. All right. This is like 10 minutes. I'll be back in a bit. Hello. Hello. Okay. Let's try something here. Hey, thank y'all for coming. I feel like I missed some questions. Okay, the cat, you gotta go away, buddy. I'm sorry. Let's try something here. Look at my cool pipes. Cat can stay. Has your brother mentioned how well these songs are doing? Does he plan to do more? He seems to. They have sold some. I think there's like how does Bandcamp work? People can like. Right, he has it set up to name your price. Um, yeah, we're gonna do more. I mean, he's gonna do more. I'm gonna give him certain guidelines and tell him, oh, that's cool. Um, but I would like to do one that's like an overture for the second book, but we'll see how it goes. And hard to hard to do that. Hard to wrap your head around that when there's no actual comic yet. Just like ideas. One thing. So generally, I feel like this is all going pretty well and according to plan in a way that that I feel engaged with, and I feel good about it. But one thing that when I started the comic, I was really interested in having more of a like consistent rolling um, multimedia presence and like doing more animation stuff and voice acting and stuff, and I just haven't been able to. It's just too much. Oh, I gotta let the cat out. I can look how long this cord is. This is great. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, so I wanted to do more of that stuff. Maybe I'll do more eventually, but I have to have a reason to do it, and I can't get distracted from the work itself. Okay, I'm going to try to walk around the room a little and show you some things. Bearing in mind that I am plugged in, but I have a bit of a cord. I'm plugged into the soundboard. So this is this. Oh my god, this is gonna be difficult. Oh my god, this is gonna be difficult. Give me a second here. We're on the different mic. You hear me okay? Here's my desk. Here is literally exactly a pile of the entirety of the first passage. This is 380 pages of comics. I just fucking put them there, and then I eventually put them in a big Tupperware. I don't know. There's some big Tupperwares full of comics pages. Um, Here's something of a secret. I showed this to Patreon, but this is the art for probably what is going to be the print version of this book. I don't exactly know how or when that's going to happen, but that is the basic illustration. I am thinking that it will be black and white with spot color of an insane, obnoxious purple for the title. So that's cool. You're making me feel organized. Yeah, nobody sees this. I'm sorry. I don't show this shit to anybody. It's all very embarrassing. It doesn't have to look great. It just has to work for me, okay? Here's some crap on the wall. Character design stuff. Dirty pair poster. There's the bike. There's the horse cow. That's the alphabet. There's Zenditrigar. I never say that name out loud. That's funny. Um, this is a character of some significance. More on that later, maybe. There's development art of the two legs. There's a very early Zenditrigar over there. Some more shit. You see these guys? Can you see that? I can't quite go that far. It's all the little acolytes. The little guys. There's Andy Griffith. There's a beautiful print by my friend Maritza. I'm never on camera with this shit. Oh yeah, okay. I'm going to show you some fairly wild stuff, and I'll show you a fairly wild thing in a moment here. These are all quite old. I made these before I started the comic. Most of them before I started the comic, and they don't all exactly pertain. This is a knock, almost as he ended up looking. The helmet gets somewhat more angled, geometrical. The lighting situation in here not ideal, of course. You see, that guy. There's a Yorl. Whoop. Okay. Okay. Digging the longer hair. Thank you. Okay, don't take this too seriously, but this is the big shit. That's the continent. That's the continent. Um, entirely subject to change, but I got the basics. Pretty cool. Entirely subject to change. Okay. Let's get back to it. What are we doing now? I could have planned this a little better, but it's nice to talk to all y'all. There's a lot of fucking people in here. Can somebody tell me how many people are in here? Jesus Christ, that's a lot of people. Oh my God. Well, I'm really serious that the this new thing that OBS can do, where I can move through. Whoa, I didn't know I could do that. This new thing that OBS allows me to do, where I can scroll through videos, that's gonna change my fucking life. That's incredible. Okay, back to the good mic. Check. Um. Okay. The original version of that Sam Delkin cartoon we could never find. Oh my God. How do I get back into the habit of doing that fucking show? I loved doing that show. I used to do, many of you may know, this weekly stream of old weird cartoons. But it became impossible for me to keep up with. And then I got out of the habit, and then I stressed myself out about like not doing it. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I mean, I could bullshit an awful lot of it. Okay, anyway. So first passage of the comic ended today. Please read it again. I beseech you. It's free. You can read it anywhere. I made a little website that feels like the ideal way to read it to me. Um, there's a bunch of little extras and shit. I'm gonna overhaul it slightly over the next month. Um, and tighten it up a little bit and hide some more weird shit in it. There's some like secret things that people have mostly found um, hidden on the website. Sometimes pages will have like a world internal document that you could link to by like a secret button in the corner of the page. Um, Stuff like that where I'm trying to make the website be like a cool thing. Anyway, that just ended. This is my life for the past year. I have been focusing more on this thing than I have focused on one thing in maybe my entire life. Honestly, exactly, yes, my entire life. I am more committed to this fucking thing. I I just I loved working on it so far, you know? And there's a constant sort of flying by the seat of my pants feeling, which I am feeling intensely now because the next book is so. The next book demands some planning, and we'll see how that goes. But uh, I feel good about it. So, anyway, the next book is called The Face and Shadow Side. It is not a totally separate story. It's a continuation of the thing. It's very different. I don't want to tell you really anything about it, but I'm very excited about it. We start that in like 4 weeks, I guess. I think I have a handle on it. I am doing a lot of writing this month. I'm taking like I really am doing no work except for writing this thing and doing some and teaching my little class. It's kind of yeah, no, I don't think I want to say more than that. But um this is all building in like a direction, and it is going to be like it's going to be pretty big. Um what class? I'm teaching a class at SVA web comics, which is it's wild that there is a class called web comics in 2024. They started having that class in 2013, which already felt kind of like the end of an era as far as web comics are concerned. But I'm having fun with it. I'm teaching it kind of like I am advocating for self-publishing and trying to put internet publication in a historical context of self-publishing generally, and having that be a big part of my focus, because I feel like I'm teaching mostly comics majors who have taken a lot of classes in comics, and I don't feel like a lot of the classes talk about that very much. Also, like I'm the fucking autodidact. I I don't know. I came around to all of my technical knowledge the long stupid way, and I kind of know what I'm doing. I don't know. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing compared to a lot of the other professors, so I'm trying to like lean into that and be like, you know, the one that's not institutional, something like that. Tomb King Tristan plans for a hard copy. So yes, cannot no, not firmly. I mean, I want to have it in print. It's such a nightmare to keep multiple volumes of a story in print, so that's an anxiety that I have for the future. But uh, it feels manageable to get the first book of Third Voice printed. It's a somewhat self-contained feeling graphic novel of like 400 pages, which is not insane to get printed. I There's some possibility that I will maybe do it without doing a Kickstarter fundraiser thing, which would make the process somewhat simpler. I I have gone back and forth on if I should pitch it to publishers. I don't know. Like I don't feel like it's compatible. I don't feel like it's a thing that fits into the industry, right? Like it's too like I don't want to be I don't want to be contained. I don't know. Um no, I'm kind of rambling here. Yeah, I don't know. I would like to self-publish it and see what happens. It's just I don't know where to go from there exactly. A lot of my thinking in that aforementioned clean break, a lot of my thinking about like what am I going to do? What shape is this project going to take? Is was around like how do you move forward exactly? What is the like what template do I have for what this career looks like? I don't have one. I mean, there's no normative way of doing comics independently as a career. Whatever normative way there has been for that to exist, it's not it doesn't exist for very long. Um so God, where was I going with that? Give me a second. Um so I don't know what to do that like actually builds stability into what I'm doing. I mean, I could self-publish a book and I could sell it and then like could continue sort of chugging along with no real institutional incorporation, I could do that. It's going all right. I just there's no no, I'm not. I don't have a clear enough idea of what I'm saying. Sorry. I just the angle for me is not. I can't just. I don't know how to port my shit into the more institutional parts of pop culture. You know, I've done books for big publishers. I've done books for one big publisher. And it was fun to do the Island Book series for First Second. Those were fun, but like I can't fit into. I don't know. Most of what I want to make is not going to fit into that mold, and I don't know how to. This feels like the way to move forward for me, and I just have to make it work somehow. I don't know. This too. I'm too unrehearsed here. I'm not going to stop talking about that. I'm still hyped for Last Delivery, by the way. I know you said it's not your focus right now, but how is that going? Any news? Last Delivery is out in April. It will be effectively debuting at TCAF in Toronto in May with me. It's done. It's out of my hands. I have seen it physically. Well, I can show it to you. Do you want to see it? I'll bring it over in a minute. I'm quite happy with it. I made it in like a big weird fugue period, and I feel totally emotionally disconnected from it now, but I think it goes pretty hard. Tired ass. I have maybe a silly question. Could you talk a little more about the difference between working on this versus working on Vaatu, for example? Third Voice sounds like Third Voice is a pretty special, unique project among your other projects. Difference. Third Voice is just more. I've been committing to it with a more clear understanding of what I'm doing. I think like a lot of the other stuff in retrospect feels like I just this is what I'm doing. I better make a book about this or that and chug along through it. Vaatu did occasionally feel like kind of a slog because there was some like. I planned it out to have this big arc and these big sort of long-term developing trajectories. That it ended up feeling like at some points like there was too much focus on my part on like the big picture and not on the moment to moment. Third Voice feels different to me mainly because I'm acutely aware of that distinction. I am doing big picture stuff, but I am trying to really emphasize the moment to moment. That's the core of it, I guess. Third Voice did start as a publisher pitch, Bangelo, but I did like much of the material of this first book was initially a like self-contained graphic novel about Spondula Navichet. It fell through and then it ballooned into this thing. Would Iron Circus publish it? I don't know. It's just big and expensive. I don't know. Have you worked with publishers before? I have worked with Iron Circus and First Second Books. Those are the big ones. Dunk Beetle. Better to use publishers when it fits with a story you want rather than change the story to fit the publisher kind of thing. Exactly that. Exactly that. That's how I'm trying to think of it. Both of the books that I've done with Iron Circus, Harrowing of Hell, and Last Delivery, I had the idea of them as like, oh, this is a fairly self-contained, shortish graphic novel thing. Oh, Spike, my friend Spike, the publisher, would love this. That's exactly how I'm trying to think of it, basically. What are you all saying? Yes, yes, yes to? I'm quite behind on the chat, I gotta say. I'm not doing VanCaf this year. I am doing Mocha. I am committed to Mocha TCAF SPX this year. Maybe a couple more. I would like to do Cake again. I love that. I love that. I love that show. Cake in Chicago. I love that show. I did it. I'm blown away by it. It got better. It gets better and better. Oh yeah. Okay. We all wanted to see Last Delivery. Can you give me just one moment? Ugh. This camera makes this weird flickering thing with the light bulb. Oh, that looks like shit, don't it? Oh, that looks like shit, don't it? Um. Oh shit. It's a real professional operation here. There's the book. It has this like so high. I forget their last name. The Iron Circus's pre-press person, High, had a lot of the ideas that a lot of production ideas and treatment ideas for this book that had not occurred to me that are why it looks so good. This is like a sort of I guess champagne colored foil. This typography treatment, I love it. I would not have thought to go in that direction, but it really fucking rocks, and it works with the illustration, I think. And this like pink band, that's just a cool idea. Not my idea. Got this great blurb. Check that out. Well, I don't know. What do you want to see? Big weird book. The author. It's very brightly colored. I was really trying to think hard about CMYK like process color printing and play with that more intentionally than I have before. Like there's a lot of really loud, yellow, magenta, cyan stuff in it. It's fun. It's a very much a I don't know, COVID and divorce fugue book, but it is what it fucking is. Oh yeah, I forgot you. I forgot the mic was not near me. Okay. Do you have any method or strategy for inventing the names in third voice? I try to I try to I try to roll with vibe a lot. I do have the structure of a big invented language, which there's enough there that I can like plausibly do a lot of name inventing in it, but that doesn't necessarily yield something that that like automatic suggestive power. So that's not my first. That's not my go-to. But I will do things like back form etymologies. So spondule. Oh shit! I have stuff I'm going to share with you in just a second here. I have a whole fucking audio visual, a whole slideshow. Spondule and Navichet, right? I came up with these characters, kind of hypnagogically, right? They were just automatically clear to me. I had some sense of their vibes, and then I spent a little bit of time like clarifying them. But the names were pretty clear to me. Like I just wanted one to feel sort of Spondule-ish and one to feel sort of Navichet-ish. But now that I have the invented language structure for the comic, I have backformed an etymology for spondule. It's a corruption of spanatul. Spana is a verb meaning to be to have pizzazz or to be like to be spirited, right? And tool or teal, but tool is a suffix to say, to basically say like this is a person that exemplifies that. So it just means like guy with pizzazz. Which rocks to me personally. Okay. I'm going to just show you a bunch of oh, do I have these handy? Let me give me a second. Yeah, I'm just going to walk through a bunch of visual development stuff for these two characters, okay? This will be our last thing of the evening. Thank you all for coming. This has been fun. Oh, although I do have a whole fucking mix of some more disco-oriented songs that perhaps I will play us out with. So I came up with these guys in 2020. Give me a second. Sorry. I try to so like hypnagogic or automatic imagery has always been pretty important to me. It was a big part of Rice Boy. I like the mid-century surrealists and how they focus on that. I'm a materialist. I don't think that there's any inherent magical power to the subconscious part of the brain, but I think it's important to realize that there's a lot going on in your head that you're not aware of, that you're not consciously touching on, and any experience of having an idea is connecting with that in some kind of way. So anyway, I've sort of gotten into the habit of like if some imaginal thing shows up, I try to hold on to it and articulate it consciously. These guys, while I was biking once in 2020, emerged like that. They were very much sort of how they are now. Navichet was somewhat more of a growling frog creature. But the basic shape of them, and importantly, the two of them as like a dichotomy, right? Like they're not just two different character designs. They're two different character designs designed in opposition to each other. I feel like I like that a lot. I liked that a lot at the start. So yeah, this was, I don't know, probably within days of that first drawing. And then here's a somewhat tighter one from around that time in 2020. Spondules, Chaff Widow says, Spondules run into a weird improvised kick kind of approach to putting his whole self into a situation. Has seemed like a very specific type of guy to me, and I wonder if you have any reference for that. The one that just came to mind to me is some of the weirder stunts Tony Jaa does in his movies. I'm not super literate in like fighting or representations of fighting in media. Um, I like to just have everything be an expression of character, and he feels like he would be just a reckless, overcommitted dumbass, and so that's what he would do, you know. This was, I don't know if I'm going to have things to say about all these exactly. This was tightening up on the basis of that last one. I don't know. I had some idea of fitting them into some sort of more like magical Dr. Seussy space or narrative logic. I think I had thought about them. I was thinking about them around when I was doing development for Last Delivery, and I was thinking about them showing up there in that book. When you read that book, you will find that it has a diametrically opposed narrative and setting logic to Third Voice, so it would be weird, but just that was what was on my mind, sort of fitting them into a sort of like goofy sort of magical realist thing. Here they are again. I just was having fun with playing with these character designs. Around here, around here, I think I was starting to write sort of graphic novel pitch material and think about them as like characters in a kind of like, you know, salvaging characters in like a post-apocalyptic environment. I did in this period write basically a couple of almost finished graphic novels about these guys, which are not compatible at all with Third Voice as it stands now. But there's a lot of thinking about them I did over the course of 2020 and 2021. This was an illustration for the pitch I gave to First Second. I had just read Dragon Ball and was obsessed with drawing something in black and white and taking black and white more seriously and like spot blacks more seriously. But I feel like I figured out a bunch of the visual logic here. This was another illustration from that pitch. Yeah, I don't know. I like that drawing. Look at Navichet's big weird mouth. What's going on there? I didn't figure her out for a while, I think. I like the treatment there, you know. That looks cool. I like the striped onesie. I really wanted to hold on to the striped onesie for a very long time, but it's too fiddly, or I don't know. I get anxious about having too much stuff to distract from body language and visual storytelling, I think, is why I just made it pink. These were illustrations that these I didn't intend these to be in color, as you maybe can tell. I didn't intend these to be in color. These were black and white illustrations for that same pitch. That I colored much later just to sort of feel them out. But I feel like I really fucking figured something out here, right? They kind of work. They kind of feel like believable, distinct characters, and they fit the sort of like somewhat more grounded post-apocalyptic vibe. Yeah, I like the long leg, short torso thing. I think that's kind of cute. I don't know. I didn't stick with it, of course. This was oh my god, I have more shit I have to go run and get to show you. I'll do that in a minute. Okay, this was drawn after that pitch with first second fell through, and I was starting to think about the third voice thing. Um, you can see immediately. I have figured out. I have just arrived at a lot of the conclusion, the design and costume design conclusions that that I stuck with. I think that's basically it, right? That's basically them. And then in when was this? 2022. I did this poster that I had at a couple comic conventions, which was like trying to hype up the comic in advance of a couple of in advance of it launching a couple months later. This, when I drew it, I thought was like what they were going to look like, but it was not. But I don't know, still a good drawing. You get the idea. I don't know why I didn't figure out this shit with Navichet's hands earlier. I was always drawing her with these big, stupid, huge hands. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. Whatever. It's a process. And then, uh, is that on? I don't know where that is. What does the text say? Let's read it, shall we? I was just trying to do. I wanted the text as a design element, and I just wanted to to have a bunch of visual noise down there. But also, it's kind of like rambling around the themes of the story as I imagined them at the time. In fact, let me leave this on screen for you and give me 10 seconds. I'll be right back. The logo is by Andrei Lukin, who does a lot of really beautiful logo type stuff. We did a lot of back and forth. I'm super happy with it. There's a version of it that has somewhat thicker outlines than this that I will be using more in future, probably. Okay, you guys read that? Oh God, look at all this crap I got on the screen. Okay. So that was where I was at kind of a couple months before actually starting the comic itself. Sometime in there, I made these little clay figures to try to figure out the shapes of their heads. That's a pretty good spondule. You sort of get the idea. I figured out I was really trying to get the handle of like, I imagine him as having a kind of a prominent bridge of his nose bone thing. Like most of the nose is flexible, but he has this like bridge here. This kind of helped me figure out that. I try to articulate that in the drawing. Um, but it's mostly just in my head. And there's somewhat more of an eyebrow dealy here than I ended up going with. But I'm happy with him. And then this Navichet feels way off to me. There's a little mustache here because I was trying to draw where where her mouth actually should be. But yeah, this is not my medium. I don't know what I'm doing in clay, but it was fun to figure it out a little bit. It is somewhat ET. Yeah, she's kind of ET looking. Or Crazy Frog. She's pretty Crazy Frog. Gonzo and Crazy Frog. Did the shoulder pad stay? It did not. I like the idea of it, though. I think that there will. I want to do more. No further comment on the shoulder pad. And then this is a more recent illustration from, I don't know, probably 6 months ago. This is basically how they ended up. It's funny drawing a big long comic around like a couple characters because you do all this preliminary drawing and you feel like you know what they look like and that you can reliably do it, but then no matter how much, when you're actually drawing the thing and putting them in situations and having them act, it does things get morphed in different ways under pressure. So I'm comfortable with that, but there's a period where they're still finding their shape, I think, in the early part of the comic. But if I didn't have that period, then I wouldn't feel so clear on them now, which is nice. I don't know. I feel really attached to these guys. Okay. I think I'm done for the evening. I'm going to play us out with uh, a mix of some more disco oriented songs, okay? You guys like ABBA? Thank you all for coming. This was fun. Another thing I wanted to say, whenever I do, if I do self-publish that first book of the thing, we're probably going to do a book release event at my partner's sandwich shop in Brooklyn, New York. Later this year, I don't know. And we're theorizing about themed sandwiches and soups pertaining to the characters of Third Voice. So I'll make noise about that if it ever happens. Okay, my friends, it's been lovely talking to you. Whoops. Let's listen to ABBA.